Hi there, everybody. Another beautiful start to another lovely week. Hi, I hope you're all feeling fine. You are watching my channel, Boomy Reactions, and I am Boomy. Hello again. Hi, everyone. So today, guys, I am going to be reacting to Ren Chapter 3, as requested from Tim. And yes, Tim, I am getting round to them slowly. I'm crawling through them. I know, but I am getting there. So we're on Chapter 3 today. So in chapter 1 and 2, we did see Ren discussing his awful experience going through the healthcare systems in the UK of his misdiagnosed or undiagnosed Lyme's disease, which he suffered with for a long, long time, and now suffers from the long-term effects of that undiagnosed disease. Very, very sad. And oh my gosh, what an absolute tearjerker. It broke me. So Ren discusses the the untimely death of his friend, the suicide of one of his close friends, and not only that, but then very soon after, there were more deaths of very close friends, and just watching him talk about it is absolutely, it's heart-wrenching, it's gut-wrenching, it's just, oh gosh, he just bears his soul, doesn't he? And he's so in tune with his emotions, and even he's a very good storyteller. And even as he's explaining these events and telling us how they happened and how he's recounting them, I don't know about anyone else, but my heart just feels like it's there. And oh gosh, it got me. I'm a crier. I am a crier anyway. You know this by now, guys. I'm a crier. And I wish somebody warned me to have the tissues handy, because oh my gosh, it's heartbreaking. It is absolutely heartbreaking. So I have had a tip, an insider letting me know that apparently chapters 1 and 2, 1 is, as I experienced, just heartbreaking to listen to and to watch him recount these events that took place very early on in his life as well. He was a very young man. And yes, so chapters 1, very hard to get through, very, very, very hard to listen to. Chapter 5 is apparently one to have the tissues handy. So I will do that for chapter 5, thank you. But I think crying wise, I think I'm okay for chapter 3 today. I think I'm in the safe zone. So hopefully no crying and snotty, blubbery mess today. So yes, okay, let's crack on with chapter 3. And as ever, guys, if you're enjoying these reactions, please like and subscribe to the channel. Thank you, thank you.
My therapist was scowling at my weekly anxiety and depression scores like a detective trying to crack a particularly stubborn case. There were no signs of improvement, and the scores followed no real measurable pattern that were consistent with bipolar. After nearly 2 years of talk therapy and taking enough medications to fill a pharmacy, he sat down with me and he dropped the bombshell that he didn't think that I had bipolar. In fact, he said that he didn't think that I had depression at all. And it was a very odd thing to be stripped of an identity in an instant. The reality was that a 20-minute in and out consultation 2 years ago led to 2 years of swallowing pills that I never needed and devoting so much of my time to managing the condition that I never actually had. The emotions inside me swirled around like a mismatched soup. On one hand, I was full of anger and I was bitter about the whole situation, but I was also hopeful that this new path could offer me the relief that I desperately needed. He told me he was going to refer me to an ME clinic in Bath. I'd never heard of it before, but instinctively true to character, I started researching it online as soon as I got home. Apparently, ME is the medical equivalent of a choose-your-own-adventure book, with tiredness as the only consistent plotline. There were no universally accepted reasons as to why the fuck it existed in the first place. It seemed it was largely accepted to be a post-viral condition, but that was all speculative because there were no clear consensus in the medical community what ME even was. The defining characteristic was a tiredness that wouldn't go away with rest. I could relate to this. In fact, I could more than relate to it.
But I just feel like I don't know. Maybe this is a really ignorant, uninformed opinion to have, but it just kind of feels like they're arriving at conclusions for disorders or illnesses, in Ren's case, psychological disorders, before they've entertained other possibilities. Like, they arrive at that conclusion quite quickly, but like Ren said, it's a conclusion that you know, it's going to become part of your identity for a long time, especially with the psychological disorders route. And to have that, like Ren just said, to have that stripped from you in an instant, just sat in front of a medical professional telling you this, is it's awful. What do they expect? Is there no support for you? You've just literally been told that something that has identified you for a long time isn't actually what is wrong with you. It's not. So then you're left doubting your own kind of sanity and your attachment to this disorder that just hasn't been there in the first place. I mean, that on its own is enough to make you feel slightly crazy. But is there no support there? Like, this is a mental health professional. This is a therapist that's breaking this news to you. And you would assume that they would have had a lot more support in place for the news that they're about to present you with. That's awful. Poor Ren.
Did 8 years, and it only was getting worse. I pinned a lot of hope on going to that first visit at the ME clinic. It was a 6-month waiting list, God bless NHS wait times, but I felt excited to be surrounded by people who would understand me, where I could climb out of this nightmare. But my hopes were pretty quickly crushed during that first visit.
I think I wouldn't like to to speak for everyone's experience with the NHS. I feel like that's not fair, and I feel it does differ from region to region. So again, I wouldn't like to speak badly of a service that has helped millions, billions of people throughout its time since it was created after World War II. It's done a lot of good, but we are talking about a service now that is incredibly stretched. We rely on it to cover every aspect of our well-being, our healthcare. It has to provide for a lot more people these days, and it's just underfunded, understaffed. It's no fault. It's not necessarily the fault of the service. It's not necessarily the fault of the NHS all the time. But I feel like there are bad decisions that get made on an administration level, high up decisions. And I don't know what the answer is. I'm not going to pretend there's an answer to the British, to the NHS problem. And I won't bore anyone that isn't familiar with the NHS, any of our viewers from across the pond. But it's very much a problem in the UK, and it's a problem that we all have an opinion on, informed or not. My opinion is certainly not as informed as it should be, so I'm not going to pass judgments or make any extreme statements here. But my experience with mental health care in the NHS has been somewhat similar to Ren's here, in that the waiting times are outrageous. It's great that Ren has been offered counselling or therapy. For a lot of people, that doesn't even get offered in the first place. It's a lot cheaper and a lot quicker to just be handed out sertraline tablets, Zoloft, or others, Prozac, depending on what your issue is when you go and see your GP. It's a lot cheaper, it's a lot easier. And I think the attitude is that I think healthcare professionals assume that we're demanding answers right there and then, and we want a very quick fix, we want a solution to it. Or maybe it's a temporary band-aid, that's it's going to help you temporarily, but long term, I suppose the answer is therapy. Many different therapies, again, dependent on what your problem is, but the therapies are few and far between. and the waiting lists for them and the referral system, it kind of feels like you're jumping through hoops to eventually get there. So it's interesting. It's lovely listening to Ren so openly talk about these problems, because I think they resonate with a lot of people who have struggled, particularly in the UK, with these with the healthcare system and how we get treated. I don't think there's malice behind it. I think it's just, like I said, it's a system that is struggling financially and with its staff. But in the process, a lot of desperate people are becoming more desperate, and it's not helping. So it's, like I say, it's nice to hear Ren so openly talking about it, because it is an issue over here, and a lot of people are suffering because of it.
I remember walking into a space that looked like a disused classroom where a bunch of people on chairs were sitting around in circles like Alcoholics Anonymous. I could feel a sense of camaraderie in that we all felt like dog shit. We were all confused and we were all desperately wanting to feel better. I believe at the time I was probably the youngest in the group. The group leader waddled in and handed us all a booklet that looked like a school timetable. She then sat us down and told about this new revolutionary technique called pacing, where you write down and track everything that you do in a day, and then you do it less. And then with time, do it more again. The theory being that you have a limited bucket of energy compared to normal people, and you need to protect that and gradually push it. I thought this sounded pretty stupid, so I raised my hand. I told her about the pain in my body. I told her that my muscles twitched constantly. I told her that my bones ached. I told her that my mouth was dry. I couldn't focus. That some days they'd be without mercy and I'd be trapped in bed for the whole day. But the days that I wasn't, I wanted to make the most of it. I wanted to breathe the air and I wanted to live. She told me she understood it's hard, but she didn't really offer more than that. She just pointed at the booklet and told me to follow it. I asked her about things like heavy metal poisoning, about chronically reactivating viruses, about defective mitochondria, about all the things that I read that were linked to chronic fatigue. But she just raised an eyebrow, looked at me like I was a hypochondriac, and told me she knew nothing about those things. Yeah. I remember walking out of the building feeling disheartened and defeated, so much so that my legs buckled as I was walking home. I began to sob uncontrollably on the side of the road. An old woman knelt down to comfort me and asked me what was wrong. I didn't even really know how to explain, so I just told her that I missed my friend. Despite my skepticism, I stuck to the program for at least half a year, and I kept going for my periodic visits to the clinic, and it did jack shit. In fact, I got worse. I was always getting worse. One thing that particularly struck me about the ME support groups was the pure desperation and confusion. With most other conditions, you're given a diagnosis, a prognosis of whether it's going to kill you, and what you can do to manage it or cure it. With ME, you don't get that. You get an indeterminately long sentence to purgatory. You feel worse than you've ever felt in your whole life, and you're given no explanation as to why, and no signpost pointing the way out. There was no selection bias to the people suffering. Members of the group were anything from esteemed ex-lawyers to single parents to former athletes. One thing I can say, these people were for the most part all extremely driven and collectively mourning their old lives. There's a stigma that because ME's predominant presentation of symptoms is tiredness, that its victims are just being lazy. I can tell you firsthand that me and every single person I've met with genuine ME would rather run 1,000 marathons than have to live another week with the tiredness and the unrelenting fatigue. We were at war with our tiredness, trying desperately to escape it, and some of us would go to extreme lengths to turn ourselves into guinea pigs to try and find ways out. Suicide was pretty common in those online support groups. It was around this time I was swallowed into the music industry. I was out busking on the streets one day and I noticed this sketchy, good-looking Mauritian guy with his arms crossed, watching me, really intensely, as though he was studying every lyric coming out of my mouth. He approached me and asked me if the songs I was singing were mine. I said they were. A big smile was painted across his face, and he told me he just finished recording Plan B's latest record, which turned out to be The Defamation of Strickland Banks, one of my favourite albums of all time. He was looking for a new project to sink his teeth into, and he asked me if I'd come to London to record. We got into it. The whole time I felt dreadful, but this was a lifelong dream materialising in front of my eyes. So bit by bit, when I could, I'd get the train to London and start chipping away at my first ever album. I didn't really let on how I was feeling during this time because I didn't want to sabotage it. There would be times I'd finish up in the vocal booth after doing the take, excuse myself to go to the toilet, throw up from the dizziness I was experiencing, sometimes with specks of blood, and then I'd go back and pretend that nothing had happened. I'd be sitting around with the whole room spinning and would pretend I was fine. There was only so long that I was able to keep this up. Eric told me it'd be a cool idea for me to start going to industry showcases and start building buzz. Performing live like this was a whole new level of taxing that I wasn't ready for, but I was so ferociously ambitious that I just ploughed through. The usual way it would go is I'd be in the back of Charlie's car, the whole world would be spinning, I'd be trying my best to sleep in it all day, parked up outside of whatever venue or pub it was in London, trying to conserve energy for the show.
Is there an element of, like Ren's saying, he just didn't mention how he felt? Is that, I don't know, like if you keep going to these meetings, is there like, not quite gaslighting going on here, but if you're constantly getting the impression from like medical professionals that, you know, there's no answer, we're not going to have a cure, this is just it, this is life, so get on with it, you know, I don't understand really your symptoms, I don't really, you know, I don't know what you're talking about in terms of potential remedies or cures, but I mean, that's the message that you're going away with there, is it's hopeless. And then, I don't know, as a result, would you just carry on and then just feel there's no point in trying to explain this to other people? Because if a medical professional is, you know, making me feel like it's hopeless, then what hope do I have of talking to your average person that I meet on the streets? You know, why bother? That's so unbelievably sad.
Sometimes I'd cry a little before I performed. My whole body would be burning. Then I'd brush it off and I'd get on stage and I'd perform as best I could. People would come up to me at the end, pat me on the back. I'd smile and pretend to be charismatic. Then I'd get back in the car and I wish I was in bed and have to endure a 3-hour drive back to Bath from London. There was only a few shows where I could keep pretending. I'd usually be trying to disguise the fact that my body was trembling through the fatigue and pain. Eventually I started crying mid-set. It became blindingly obvious to everyone working with me during that time that something was very wrong. I told Eric that I needed to take some time out. My plan was to live at home with my mum for a month maximum, get my energy back, and come and finish the record. That 1 month turned into 2 months, turned into 3 months, turned into 6 months. I'd pushed myself to total burnout. The distance led to me and that angel breaking up, in part because it was difficult to navigate a relationship when you have so much brain fog, and I didn't know what it was well enough to be able to explain it to her at the time. With a loud thud, I'd been jolted out of a Shakespearean storyline, I lost the record deal, and I couldn't get out of bed. My friends from Trick the Fox never really called to check up on me. It felt like the whole world was moving at lightning speed without me. I had this amazing opportunity right in front of me, and I was chained to the floor. I was alone, I was sick. I wished that my condition would get it over with and kill me, but it wouldn't, and it felt cruel that it wouldn't. It just let me rot in bed. The whole world would continue to turn, and I would rot. In the next episode, I'm going to tell you about a fight with a television and losing my anal virginity to an 80-year-old man. Stay tuned for that.
Patterns are composed by a time bomb for an author, like pigs to the slaughter. A symphony of self-doubt sings out, breath starts getting shorter, running water. It's the state that I wish to become. Instead, concrete envelops my movement and I'm rendered deaf and dumb, unable to heed the advice of others. Don't tell me things will get better, cause so far things haven't gotten better. I've got the sweater, poster child, bipolar, ADHD, therapist, wet dream. I don't want to talk about my father, I don't want to talk about my dead friend, I don't want to talk about myself. I'm sick of talking about myself. I'm sick of talking about myself and realizing that talking about myself never ever helps. Still, I call for help, cause I really want help. But the pills didn't seem to help, and the therapist didn't seem to help. But still, I want help. I've danced with the devil in hell. I've sat in a prisonless cell. And here I always dwell, in this prison in myself. I do this thing when my mind travels back to the golden age. You know those times where you were carefree and everything was golden? The golden age. You know those times where everything was golden, where you were carefree and everything was golden? The hardest thing I ever had to do was come to terms with the fact that that time never really existed. I've always felt so fucking detached and broken, bruised and mismatched. Find it hard to relax, living under the cracks. Tried to fill in the gaps, lying here on my back. Still, I can't find it. Sense of peace in my mind declined it. Pulse increase and my sweat combines with a feeling so deep I fall inside it. Depression, I hate you, depression. Your constant oppression, respond with aggression. They say depression brings you lessons. Constant stressing conceals blessings. You will grow in broken settings. Fuck those lessons, fuck depression. I've been living in your shadow for so long that I forgot how I can shine. How I can find a refuge in my mind. How am I meant to sit here and unwind? The planets align. I feel like I'm cursed. Feel like I'm cursed to just be here to hurt. Feel like I'm cursed to just be here to bleed with my demons. Been feeling this way since birth.
I've never heard of this song. This is the first time I'm hearing this. Which song am I listening to, you guys? What's the title of this song? I can only really relate to Ren here in terms of mental health. I've been very fortunate to not have to experience any of these long-term pain disorders. Very fortunate. I know how fortunate I am to not have to have that experience. So any relation that I'm making here, it is from the connection of mental health and how Ren talks about depression, and in his other songs as well. It's so relatable and it's so honest, brutally honest. I really like the way that he describes depression here. It's very accurate. Depression isn't a state of sadness that you have opportunities to learn and have life lessons from. It's stagnation. It feels like you are in a permanent state of not moving. You can't do anything. It feels like there's nothing. It almost feels like there's no emotions at all to even connect to or relate to. It's like Ren said, it's like being stuck in concrete and wanting to be more like running water. So there's more activity there, there's more fluidity, there's movement, there's opportunity that, you don't get that with depression. Depression is it's concrete, isn't it? It's the inability to move. It's the not wanting to move a lot of the time. It's so heavy. It's so restricting. It's like you're chained as well. You're a prisoner of depression. Absolutely. And it's not, sometimes, I mean, I think it's fortunate if it's not there all the time, but then I don't know, is that more torturous because you experience other emotions and then you're back? But yeah, that analogy that's definitely hit a nerve with me. That's a very accurate depiction of depression.
Depression, I hate you. 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 Depression, I hate you.
Oh, sorry guys, I would have waited to pause it if I knew that I was so close to the end of that song. The idea of hating depression is it's a funny one. It's quite ironic because I feel like you hate the idea of depression, but the depression itself, there's rarely emotions there. There's nothing. I think if you had the capacity, whilst you are in this suspended depression, this state, I think the idea of being able to feel hate is actually quite appealing, because I mean, I can only speak from my own experience as well. I'm not sure if this is something that any other viewers have experienced with depression, but for me personally, my experience is that there's nothing. And actually, in those absolute pits, that absolute worst state of depression, the idea of being able to hate something, it's appealing because you would feel something. And the idea of being angry is appealing because, like I said, at least you'd be feeling something. But it doesn't always stay like that. For me, mine was changing. You know, there would be times where you would be in that pit, but there were times where your emotions would kind of evolve over into anger. And actually, when you go through these cycles, for me, that nothingness was the absolute worst. I would rather have had the capacity to be angry. Or even to be sad. That sounds like a weird thing to say, doesn't it? Because people associate depression with feeling sad. I would say, in my experience, again, guys, that the height of depression, the absolute worst place to be with depression is where you don't even feel sad. I wouldn't even describe it as sadness. It's a void. It's a nothing. You know, to feel sad is to feel regret or to feel sorrow or despair. But at that absolute height of depression, there's just nothing. And there's no motivation. There's nothing. But like for me, it would evolve. So, you know, days later, there would be anger. There would be despair. There would be sorrow. It was like an ever-changing thing. And I don't think it ever really goes away. It's a little bit of a life sentence that you just become aware of, and you familiarize yourself with it, and I don't know, you just kind of, you notice, you pick up on the cues where you're slipping into that again. And I don't know, it's like Ren says, you just accept it. When you stop fighting these demons, when you stop fighting it and you kind of work with it a little bit, I think that's when it becomes a little bit more manageable. So, like I've said many times, guys, just listening to how Ren articulates these emotions, particularly for me, it's the mental health aspect and how he articulates it. It's like, it's almost as if you're listening to your own experiences, but being explained by beautiful lyrics. Someone who's a lot more articulate and puts it into perspective. And it's that familiarity of hearing other people verbalize so accurately what you have felt before. It's a beautiful, it's a moving feeling to know that someone else understands, and that's it's nice. It's lovely to feel that other people do understand. You wouldn't wish it on anybody, but I don't know, it's just that I can't explain it. Yeah, you know, just that other people understand. I don't know if anyone else feels like that, but yeah. So this was an interesting chapter to listen to, and to get an insight into Ren's experience. So yes, a wonderful video to react to. Thanks, guys. To get a bit of real there for a moment. Thank you for watching this video with me. I hope you found that as interesting as I did. And I will catch you on the next video. See you later, everybody. Take care of yourselves. Bye-bye.